Hi. I want to give a shout out to Bill, Big Bill, on the YouTube Model Builder show. He gave me a suggestion for a show, and that was calipers, because I was talking about I had so many of them. And he said, well, why don't you do a special on them? So I said, well, let's talk about it as part of my tool tips. First of all, this is not a show about how to read calipers. I'm going to give a couple of links in my copy, my advertisement below the video itself, and you can go and learn how to read vernier or dial calipers or even digital calipers if that's what you really want to know. But what I want to talk about is, I always modified my X-Acto blade last time when we did the show, and this time I'm going to show you how I modify calipers to make them work a little bit better for us as model makers. Now, let me preface this with a real quick story. I worked for Vermont American. I was a model maker, but I was more artist than I was anything else. I'm not a trained machinist. I'm not a trained tool and die maker. Vermont American was an ISO 9000 company, and everything had to be perfect. I came in with my calipers the first day, and let's make sure, yeah, this is the pair of calipers that I had, and they said, get those out of here. We're an ISO 9000 company. You can't have any calipers in here that have been modified. Well, what I did with my calipers was I made them so I could use them for modeling. And for modeling, I need to measure lots of times very small screws to tell what size drill bit I'm going to use. There's the outside of a screw, the outside of the threads, and then there's the inside. You know, the threads are grooved, so there's a diameter that's much smaller down on the inside of those threads. I want to know what that inside is so I can get a drill that size, and that'll allow me a pilot hole or a tap hole that I can then run my screw into. And the fastest way to do that without getting a chart and looking it up is simply to have a pair of calipers that have been slightly modified. Let me turn them over here, see if I can get them on this camera to kind of show up there, kind of, sort of. Let's get a pointer here to show you. Out here on the tips, I have ground those. It's ground down to tiny and finer than what you normally would see. They're not flat jaws. Like here is let's get another pair out here. This one has not been modified. That's a jaw that has not been modified. You can see the tips are all perfect. So this is so that I can read very fast. Now, calipers are really cool in the fact that you can set them and you can mark with them. Jerry Leone just did a thing on the video that he made in MR Video Plus, and he talked about, he set his calipers up, and let's set them up here for a measurement. It doesn't matter what it is. And he set them up for measurement, and then he came in and he made a mark at one point along here, and then he moved them over and he made another mark, and then he connected it and whatever. Well, with my sharpened jaws, I don't have to do that. I just simply take and put it against my piece of brass here, and if I strike that, it's going to strike a line, which you can kind of, there you go, you can see it. And now I have a line to cut to. If I wanted a depth mark or whatever on a piece of brass or even a piece of wood, if I'm trying to cut this wood here and I want it cut to a dimension, then I can just simply scribe that. Now I have a mark on that wood. Let's see if you can see that. Hopefully, yep, there it is, right across there. And if I was trying to line up, say, something else to glue on it, I'll take my sandpaper here. If I want to line up that, well, that's my automatic mark that I can then line up to and glue whatever onto it. So calipers are extremely helpful in marking anything that I want to mark for whatever reason. If I want a depth, I want to know how far down this is. I want to know how close I am to the bottom. Calipers have a really neat feature in that the end here extends out. Yeah, so I can get it to pull. There we go. So as it gets deeper, this dimension is the same as this dimension is the same as this dimension. Now, what's the difference? Well, we're going to talk about this one first. That gives me a depth, so I can run that down. And there's a nice little lock here. I can lock that up, and I can read that and see how deep that is. Then I could come here and measure on the inside, like this, and get an overall for this block, and I can tell how thick that wall is here at the bottom. If I wanted to know what the diameter of this was, I can simply take these, and again, I have an inside measurement here now, and I can do that. Actually, what I had here was an outside dimension. Now I'm doing it inside. So a nice inside dimension, lock that down, and it'll tell me what size hole I have drilled there. So the caliper is an extremely valuable piece of machinery or a tool that you can get to use. Now let's talk about some very specialized calipers. Because first of all, there are some on the market. This is one that was put out by General several years ago. I think you can still get it. It is an HO and an O scale caliper. And the neat thing here is that on the top, it has, I believe, HO. Yeah, we can look here and see the name here. HO and O scale. And you have to be able to read now with the dial caliper, but this is accurate down to, as far as the marks go, a 1/2 inch. But actually, if I put it in between the 1/2 and the 1, it would be a 1/4 inch. So pretty darn accurate. These were really nice. They're plastic. They do have a depth measurement that comes out the backside, just like the rest of them. Now, PFM many years ago came out with 2 calipers. These were metal. And let me get my glasses off so I can see better here. One of them that they came out with was HO, and the other was O scale. They were made by Mitsutoyo, so they're really good quality calipers. And these read by a vernier type of scale, or vernier, however you care to pronounce it. Now, I did go to the store one day and I bought, let's see if I've got the right ones out here someplace. There we go. These are pure plastic. I mean, they are really cheap. Somebody said they had them for like $4 or something for $5 or something. And the dimensions on here are okay. They're marked off in inches. Well, I took this little baby because it's so cheap, and I scratched out the 1 inch and the 2 inch and the 3 inch marks. I came back in here and I made my own set of marks duplicating these, and then I came over here to the 1.5 inches. So here, let's set this guy up. Here's a 0. There's an 1.5 inches. That's 1 inch, 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, 2. So 1.5 right there. And that is what I have marked off then on this one at 1 foot. Guess what? These are for 1.5 inch scale, live steam. So I have a pair of calipers that will measure up to 4 inches in live steam, and it's accurate down to fractions. Let's see, I'm down to 1/8, 1/16. I'm going to do a 32nd of an inch with these little plastic calipers in live steam scale. So you can always modify these calipers and do almost anything with them that you want to do. Now, I do want to give a shout out. I went to the world's longest yard sale. If you're not familiar with that, type in world's longest yard sale. It will come up on your website, any website, and it is absolutely fantastic for getting tools. A guy had 2 of these laid out beside the road in brand new cases. They were $5 each. They are a Mitsutoyo, and I believe these are 12 inch. Yep, 12 inch calipers. They are extremely accurate. It's really smooth. The difference between a really good caliper and a cheap one, and most of mine are cheap because I grind on them. Notice that I have not ground these like I did so many of the others. But if you want a good pair of calipers, shop around and you can find them eventually online. Hope that helps you with your calipers if you're interested in having some in your shop. And see you next time. And in the meantime, go down to your railroad room, let your trains put a smile on your face.